Give up some time. So what we're going to go through today is what support is available out there at the moment for the self-employed, and then we'll talk about planning and managing your finances a little bit as well. So I've cobbled together some stuff from a cash flow webinar we've done over the last day or two. As most of you are creatives, you'll be absolutely appalled at my PowerPoint skills, but it's all about trying to get some valuable information over to you rather than impressing you with technical skills of that nature. Bit of a caveat in that we really have a fast-moving kind of environment out there. So everything I tell you might be out of date by the end of Friday. We're expecting the Chancellor to stand up and speak on the Friday 5 o'clock briefing. And there's been a lot of bricks thrown at him about people who are kind of falling through the holes, through the gaps in terms of the help that's available at the moment. So we know there's going to be further announcements. We don't yet have much clue as to what they're going to be from the Treasury's point of view. We know there's some stuff going on with the Financial Conduct Authority, but I'll get into that in a little bit. There's a Q&A panel. If you can throw questions at me as we go through left, right and centre, if you use that rather than the chat panel, because I don't have the chat panel open. I'm being regulated by our Jen McKinnon, so Jen might jump in and tell me where I'm going wrong if she thinks I'm going wrong as well. Just say hi, Jen.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, Jen's the only other person that will speak on here. But yeah, chuck the questions in as they occur to you. We don't have to be following the agenda here. I've got an hour set aside. It might take half an hour to get through. It might take an hour and a half. I don't care. Let's just make sure you get some value out of it. So the first thing I want people to put in the Q&A is, does anybody know who these two guys are? First person to answer gets a little gold star. Somebody must know. Come on. Well done, Amy. You got the first one. Who's the guy on the right? Close enough, close enough. So we've got Martin Lewis on the left, everybody's well-known personal finance guru, and Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, on the right. What I would say is certainly be aware of what's happening, read the papers, catch up with the news every day, follow stuff on social. But we all know that everything on the internet is absolutely, completely true, don't we? Or maybe it's not quite like that. Martin Lewis is really, really helpful in some situations, but incredibly dangerous in others. Don't take everything that he says as gospel. He's getting hints and rumours, and he's got some inside information, just as we have as well. Some of the stuff he says hasn't been finalised, won't happen the way he says it's going to happen. Just take it with a pinch of salt. If he's shouting about stuff, then expect some changes to come through, but not necessarily what he's saying. It's the guy on the right, the Chancellor Rishi. When he stands up and says something will happen, then those things will happen. He'll talk at a very high level. There won't be much detail there, but the detail follows over the next few days. Just be aware of what's happening. I have kind of fended off quite a lot of questions where people have kind of picked up because the hairdresser's boyfriend has said this is happening, and it's I think the technical word for it is bollocks. So just be aware. What I'd say is follow really positive sources like the Chancellor and like the Blue Sky blog. But let's get on to it. So I'm going to answer some pretty basic questions around here. If you've got any other questions around it, or if I'm not explaining properly, like I say, just dive into the Q&As and just go for it. And don't see how much I know by asking questions outside of the agenda as well. Go for it. So there's the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme was announced probably just at the beginning of this week, I think. It seems a long time ago as well. So who does it cover? It covers sole traders and partners in a partnership. It doesn't cover individuals working through their own limited company, so personal service companies. But I can talk about that a little bit later if anybody wants me to. So it's purely for sole traders and partners in a partnership. You would receive on application 80% of your average trading profits, not income, that's profits, over the 3 years from 2016-17 through to 2018-19. Okay, so we're looking at 3 years, the 3 years of which finished almost 4 years, almost a year ago, so kind of 12 months out of date. That's for people. So part of the clue as to who is also in there is in that last date as well. To be in for the scheme at this moment in time, you must have submitted a self-assessment tax return, a personal tax return for the year 2018-19. So in effect, you must have been trading at the very latest by the 5th of April 2019. That's a lot of people that started since then that are going to fall down the hole, and for whom we're hoping there will be some help forthcoming in Friday's announcement. We don't know for sure. But it's based on the 80% of average trading profits over those 3 years. If you've been trading for less than those trading under, if we've been trading for less than that, then it's just an averaging over the period of which you've been trading. Okay. We think the payments will become available in June. There seem to be piling resource at the moment into the employed furlough scheme, the job retention scheme, which we think is going to be available by the back end of April. For yourselves, for self-employed people, we think that the first payments will come through in June, but they will be backdated to March. So make that tin of beans stretch out a little bit longer, please. HMRC will contact you on the scheme. Do not contact them. So this is a process. They will contact you and it will be driven by completed 18-19 tax returns. So you need to have completed a return and submitted the return. If you are supposed to have done a tax return for 18-19 but you're late, well, first of all, ask yourself why. That's not particularly good. Get it done. Secondly, you've got to get it submitted by April the 23rd. If it's not submitted by April 23rd, you won't be entitled to the scheme. Okay. So HMRC will contact you. We think it will invite you to apply through your government gateway logon. So if you don't, which is a gov.uk portal, if you don't have a gateway logon, which you should have if you're doing tax returns, if you don't, then sort it out now. It can take anything up to 7 days to sort out anyway. You kind of need that there and up and running by the time you want to start applying. But our understanding is that you would log in through the portal and there'll be a form there or a page in which to submit your application. Andy, I haven't gone on the 50% yet, Andy. Let me get to that and I'll come back to you on that. That's all we know about the process at the moment. Further details to follow, absolutely sure. So small print wise, it's only for people who are actually trading 2018-19 and have submitted a tax return. If you are late in submitting a tax return, you've got until April the 23rd. Any late returns, they will, and I've got in inverted commas here, they will risk assess any late returns in the usual way. So if you are late, expect further delays around that. Your trading profits, as Andy is almost hinting at, must be less than £50,000. If it's more than that, you get nothing at the moment. Again, for people that have that do that, we have a client that I spoke to a couple of days ago. That's their average earnings is £59,000. Which is kind of nice and £29,000. But when we suddenly go on to nothing, then that's not really helpful for them. So let's see what the next few days brings. More than half your income must come from. No, it's trading profits is pre-tax. Yes, that's right. So it's your net taxable profit shown on the tax return. More than half of your income must come from your self-employment. If you receive a small pension, that is income. That would be the same as employed income, so that would be taken into account in terms of the 50%. That's assessed by one of two ways. So you have trading profits of less than £50,000, and these profits constitute more than half of your total taxable income. So that would be your gross pension or your gross employment, or you've got average trading profits over those 3 years of less than 50,000, and those profits constitute more than half of your average taxable income in the same period. So it's kind of 1 year or 3, depending when you started. Yeah, and if you started trading between 2016 and 19, HMRC will only use those years for which you filed a self-assessment tax return. On the positive side, and there is one, you can still continue to keep trading and earn income. That's not like the employed job retention scheme, furlough scheme, where the employee can't do any work whatsoever on behalf of the employer. So you can keep working, and you can keep your employment working as well. The grant is income for any tax credits claimed. So if you're claiming tax credits or any universal credit, the grant is going to be taxable income, and it is taxable, which is totally in line with what's going to the employers for the job retention scheme as well. Any questions so far? Kind of piling through this really quickly. Okay, I'd say moving on to the next point, watch out for the scams. There's lots of texts and emails floating about saying, get your tax refund now, get this organised now, click here, put your credit card details in, put your bank account details in. Pretty well every single one of those things is a scam. If in doubt, don't click. Yeah, if in doubt, come and ask. Just don't click, and know that you want the cash. I know that you want the money. I know it's kind of there to be done, but there are so many scammers knocking about, it's untrue. For the self-employed scheme, HMRC will invite you not to click and put any details in, but to tell you to log in through your gateway ID, and then they'll take it from there. So anything on text, anything on email that you're unsure of, make sure of it first before you kind of move on and click anything. Jamiani, much of my self-employed freelance work has now become PAYE, and as a high proportion of the work I invoice for. The situation as it is today, to be honest, has no bearing on it. It's the 2016 to 2019 position that they'll be assessing. So if that's evolved over the last few months or over the last year, because remember that all finished last April, then that doesn't matter. So potentially, if that's the case, potentially you will be eligible there. Anything else? There's plenty. So if you have a payment on account to make in July, you can defer that automatically until January without telling them. That doesn't have to be paid till January. There's no penalty. There's no interest on that if you defer. It's a deferment, not a grant. You have to pay it sometime. They're just giving you an extra 6 months to pay. And for some of you, what it means is if you're not going to do your 1920 tax return until after July, it means you don't necessarily have to pay a payment on account that wasn't really that necessary in the first place, depending on how your profits in 1920 compared to 1819. I would encourage everybody who's doing tax returns, which is obviously going to be the majority of people on the call, to really look to get your tax returns done good and early. Then you can understand exactly what your tax position is, be it in July or next January. The sooner you get your tax return done, the sooner you know what the tax position is. You still don't have to pay the tax any earlier. Just get to know now. For those of you that are VAT registered, you can also defer the payment for any VAT quarter which ended in February, March or April. Bear in mind, if you paid a VAT by direct debit, the February quarter end DD is due to be claimed in about a week's time. If you want to take advantage of the deferment, cancel your direct debit now. If you don't cancel your DD, the VAT payment will be claimed and you won't get it back. And that's a deferment. Again, you've got to pay it sometime. That time is April next year. So you get up to a year to repay that VAT bill. It's probably worth doing. That scheme quite possibly will be extended. That's a 3-month scheme that covers a single VAT return at the moment, but quite possibly will be extended to a second scheme. For employers, so some of you might be self-employed but still be employers, then there's the job retention scheme, if you want to put your employees on furlough, and be very, very aware of employment law around that as well. So speak to your HR employment law advisor. I know Jane Hart has run a seminar with Digital Union. I think that was on Tuesday, it might have been yesterday. Jane is very, very good on these things, so answer any questions to her. And also SSP, where people are off sick for coronavirus related sickness, then the first 14 days of sick pay there can be reclaimed by the employers as well. Jamiani, okay, so so you're saying that you've been more employed than unemployed over the last 3 years. I'll go back to the rules as they stand now. Over the 3 years, you've got your average trading profits have got to be less than £50,000, and these profits must constitute more than half of your average taxable income in the same period. So if you've had more employment income than self-employed income, you won't be able to claim under this scheme as it currently stands. Okay. There's a time to pay helpline, which there was before, but HMRC has set up a special coronavirus related time to pay helpline as well. It started off with 2,000 experienced call centre staff. I don't know where they got all the experienced people from. They've supplemented that with a further 5,000. So if your income is being affected by coronavirus, then you can ring them and ask to further defer taxes around it. So income tax, we know you don't have to pay until next January anyway. My expectation is by the time we get to there, some of you might still need more time to pay. I would be on the phone to them good and early to try and, if you think it's necessary, to try and negotiate further time to pay beyond that. And I would expect that getting a further 6-month extension to take us to the July 2021 payment on account deadline would be pretty acceptable to them. I'd be keen to get feedback from any of you, whether you're clients or not, about how HMRC are treating you if you use the time to pay helpline for anything at all. The same principle would apply for your VAT. So if you defer this one payment, then we've got until next April to pay it. As we get into next year, if you think it's unlikely you'll be able to do that, then again, the time to pay helpline should still be kind of knocking around, and use it if you need, and give us some feedback there. For VAT, if you think about how they like to look at payment plans, it tends to be around the cycle of the tax. So with income tax, with payments on account, you're paying every 6 months. So generally, if there's anything outstanding, the one it kind of paid by the time the next payment is due. And with VAT, it's quarterly. So you've kind of got a shorter time period there, generally, unless you have a really good business case to stretch it beyond there, but that tends to be a bit more of a struggle. The expectation is they're a little bit more helpful and friendlier for coronavirus related requests than sometimes they have been under the normal time to pay helpline. The CBILS, which is the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, were launched officially on Monday the 23rd. It's been given a good kicking in the press and by people kind of going through it, which is no surprise. I understand that the terms and conditions and criteria went through 22 different revisions over that weekend, and the paperwork was finally signed off at 4 o'clock on the Monday morning to get launched on the Monday. So we've had instances where different lenders, lenders are being inconsistent with each other, individuals within the lenders are being inconsistent with each other. Businesses are being turned down when they should be saying yes. Businesses are we're saying yes. The lenders are saying yes when potentially they should say no because it's for the wrong reasons. And we kind of limped to the end of the week, and it was proudly announced that hundreds of loans had been sorted out. Well, that's hundreds out of over 500,000 applications, so that's not really that helpful. So we know there'll be a bit of an opening up and a widening of the scheme from the announcement tomorrow. That's one of the things we're expecting tomorrow. So if any of you kind of need that, then kind of away you go. But other loans are available as well. If you're in startup mode, then the startup loans still continue. So the likes of Transmit and other startup loan providers are more than happy to speak to you around that. And the theory behind CBILS is it's a loan available to you if you are affected by coronavirus, but it's only available if other avenues have been exhausted. So the key is you should be talking to your bank anyway, and they should be exploring to you whether a normal commercial loan or a normal overdraft, pardon me, would be more suitable for you than CBILS. CBILS is good. There's no interest for 12 months, and most of them will give you a capital repayment holiday for 6 to 12 months as well. I'm a bit croaky because I've been doing too many webinars, not because I have coronavirus, I hasten to say. So really try and get yourself into CBILS if you are going for a loan. I'd say be careful on the loan side as well. Generally, when we're borrowing money under a loan, we know what the repayments are going to be, and we know what it's for, and we know we can repay it, and we know when things will return to normal. And I don't think any of us are quite in that position at the moment. So to me, it's kind of a bit of a last resort thing. Just be careful. However, when we get onto the cash flow side of things, then it might be a good avenue to explore for other reasons. Finally, any of you that actually pay business rates and have small business rates relief, then there's a £10,000 grant administered by the local authority. Those payments have been shooting out left, right and centre now over the last few days. I know for ourselves, with North Tyneside Council, we got a £10,000 grant. We put the application in on Monday, we had the cash in the bank on Wednesday. They've been really good about it. South Tyneside, I know, have been pretty good. Gateshead, understand they've got a different process and you have to ring them. And Newcastle were first off the block with their payments. They managed to distribute £8 million plus to about 400 or so businesses before North Tyneside Council even got themselves into gear there. So the local authorities in general have been really good about this. Like I say, all this might change over the next 2 days, so watch this space. Are there any questions on that before I go into cash flow and cash management? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'll assume no. Just quickly then, what can we expect in the future? Does anybody know what TANSTAFL means? Somebody in there must be reading, must be a science fiction reader. I'll give you 10 seconds to answer that one. Probably 20 seconds because it's quite a long thing to type. Written Robert Heinlein, although it's very long-winded and old-fashioned these days. It's short for there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. So all this money's got to come from somewhere. Now, the marvel of economics is that there actually are magic money trees for treasuries and central banks, so they can just print money and shove it in. But yeah, there's a burden on the future taxpayer as well. So Rishi has hinted that there needs to be an equalisation of taxes. If people are getting equal support, then they need to be making equal contributions. My expectation, at the very least, is that employee Class 4 national insurance, which self-employed pay at 9%, will increase to 12% to match the employees' national insurance. That will be the first step. Whether or not there are also income tax raises, who knows? There was a kind of pre-budget confirmation that income tax rates and VAT rates wouldn't rise at all. That was before all this. I think all the rules have been ripped up. Just expect some tax rises in the future to start paying for this. Okay, so your income gone down, you still got mortgages to pay, rent to pay, food to put on the table, kids to keep entertained. So if you've never done a cash flow forecast before, now is the time to kind of work out what your runway is. Your runway is the amount of time you got until you run out of cash. We know from a business point of view, 70% of businesses that fail are generally profitable businesses, but they fail because they run out of cash. Once you can't pay your suppliers, nobody supplies you. Once you can't pay your staff, nobody wants to work for you. Away you go, the business is doomed. And it's kind of the same on an individual basis as well. You really got to get control of your personal finances as well as your business finances and kind of plan out kind of what the future is like. So there's some tips here with a blog as well. Most of this appears on one of the blogs on our blog page. I'll kind of go through that at the end, but I'll run through all of these in a bit more detail. So number one, really have an understanding about how this might impact you. So are you in a business has every bit of income just stopped? Has the work just stopped? Have you dropped off a cliff? Do you expect that to continue whilst we're under lockdown? And when the doors reopen again, do you expect the floodgates to open? Or in particular, if you're in a business-to-business type activity, do you expect there to be a little bit more caution? And so a more gradual kind of build up to income again coming at you. Just have a think about who you're dealing with and what their expenditure patterns might be in the future. My expectation, if, for example, if you had a cafe, is that, yeah, you've dropped off a cliff, you've got no income anymore, you open the doors, you're going to be the most popular person in the world, you're going to be rammed, unless it's a kind of halfway house social distancing that says, yeah, you can let people in, but you've got to have 6 feet between everybody who's sitting in there, or something like that. We kind of wait and see on that. So have a think about the business that you're in, the customers, and what their expenditure patterns might be as we come out of this. Okay. Understand your forecasting tools. So there's a couple of ways to do this. It's very easy to do a fairly crude cash flow forecast in Excel. There's a little bit more of a sophisticated model available from our blog page, absolutely free. Go help yourselves and kind of work out what it's about. But almost, if you're in a kind of simple sole trader, it's just you and that's it kind of thing. You could literally just do a 3 or 4 liner. You know, what's your income, what your expenses, what's your cash position at the end of that over a period of time. Do it daily, do it weekly, do it monthly. I would suggest at least weekly. Going through the current position, I think it's about kind of understanding what the next 3 months have got in store for you. And as we get through those 3 months, we'll probably have a clear idea of what the second half of the year has in store for all of us. So use Excel, but you can have some pretty simple Excel models, and it's more about analysing your business and income and expenditure. So it's the commercial knowledge that needs to go into that modelling as much as the technical skills to do that. If any of you are on Xero, which is our tool of choice in Blue Sky, or QuickBooks, which isn't, they both link to a product called Float, which is a cash flow app, which will kind of automatically suck any updates out of your accounting package and kind of reforecast your model for you once you've gone through. It takes a little bit of learning, but it gives a much better graphical kind of view of where you're going to go. And you can run different scenarios through it as well. So you can have 5 different scenarios running at the same time, which is really, really helpful. That's something that we use internally. Chase your cash. If you've got invoices outstanding and people owe you money, it's your money. Don't be shy and ask for it. The longer it takes to come in, the more chance there is it'll turn into a bad debt. Chase it, chase it, chase it. If people aren't going to pay you, are only going to pay you part of what they owe you, you need to understand that as soon as possible, so that first of all you can build that into your own cash forecasts, and secondly you can decide what further actions you're going to take in terms of cash control and credit control. Would you take somebody to court? You know, these people that are going to be good customers in the future potentially. There's some political hoops to jump through as well as financial hoops there. I think the key to that is actually to have a credit control process and then to follow the process. Check your discretionary expenditure. Well, none of us can go down to Costa Coffee every day now and blow £6 on a couple of coffees and that. So, you know, there's some there, but look at what's going out the bank, understand and analyse every single line in your bank statement over the last month and think, do I need that now? Do I need it now? Do I need it now? So you'll probably have quite a lot of SaaS subscriptions. Do you need all of them? Can you downgrade any of them? Other things as well, magazines, books, whatever. You know, what do you absolutely, completely and utterly need to get through the next 3 months, and what can you do without? And look to do without. Analyse your biggest costs. This was kind of pitched maybe more at bigger businesses. So, and it tends to be employees and rent. But yeah, with employees, there's the job retention scheme to look at. Can that help you? And for rent, is it worthwhile, even for those of you that are maybe booking a seat down at the BIC or something like that, is it worth having a conversation to see if you can kind of defer or reduce your expenditure there? Consolidate your debts. This might be where CBILS comes in. So if you've got a couple of loans and a couple of credit cards knocking around, now might be a good time to just try and pull that all together into a single debt on a lower interest rate, or if you can get away with that through CBILS on a 0% interest rate. So really look at what you're paying from an interest point of view on any existing debts and look to see what you can do to consolidate those. Look at your available help, and we went through that a little bit earlier in terms of rate support, in terms of the VAT deferment and the income tax payment on account deferment. Just be aware of what's there and understand what you can utilise and what you can't. Be on top of your numbers, so that's kind of your bookkeeping. You need to watch your cash position on a daily basis, and you need to understand how that's going to be impacted by stuff that you're expecting to come in and stuff that you're expecting to go out. Absolutely be on top of it. For those of you that are actually using accounting systems, get them up to date every day, especially cloud accounting systems. The whole technology is there to make sure you get up to date information at your fingertips, regardless of the coronavirus situation. Don't just update it once a month or something like that. You might as well go back to Sage and paper, and I'm sure none of us actually want to do that now. And yeah, reappraise daily. Just look at it every day. Look at your bank statement every day. Look at your bank every day and just make sure that you understand what's coming in and what's going out. It doesn't take 2 minutes to do that. Understand more about your own business. If in particular, if you've got some downtime here, take the time to work on your business. Think about the marketing activities that you're going to want to utilize in the future. Think about your own processes, your own products and services. Do you want to change things? Can you be more efficient? Can you be more profitable? What will your customers want post-coronavirus as opposed to pre-coronavirus? The world will evolve a little bit. I think we're all pretty sure about that. You know, what can you do to take advantage, which might be the wrong word, but it's exactly what I mean. Take advantage of coming out of there. How can you be a little bit ahead of your competition? Just get prepared, get some stuff done now, get some networking done now, get some relationships generated now, so they're kind of there for you in the future. And don't forget the future when you're planning and cash flowing as well. Don't actually shut down everything that you're going to need when things get going again. Just make sure you've got sufficient resource there in terms of people, in terms of products, in terms of time, in terms of cash, to kind of give you a bit of a launch pad when the time comes again. And be realistic in your expectations and your projections. None of us really know how long this is going to go on for or what's going to happen after the next 2 or 3 months. So it's kind of difficult to say for sure. But keep an eye on the situation and on the announcements that are being made. Be aware in terms of the medical announcements and the lockdown and the social distancing. One key thing the government has always done since the days of Tony Blair is look at nudge theory. And for those of you that haven't read the book, which is a fascinating book, this is all about instead of launching great big concepts on people which they find difficult to take into consideration, you kind of nudge them towards it step by step until either they're in a position where they'll just accept it because it's the next nudge, or they think it's a good idea themselves. And I suspect the lockdown announcements are a bit like that. So we had the whole, it'll be sorted by Easter. We'll be at the tip of it by Easter. Well, it sounds like Easter might be when we're at the tip of the curve, but even if the growth starts smalling, it'll still be growing. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the lockdown took us right the way through the end of May, and certainly into June, and then looking at the way other countries are kind of very cautiously starting to open the doors again, particularly in China, assuming we can kind of believe the news that's coming out of there. It might be kind of a slight opening of the door, and it might be that the social distancing type regulations that we have. It's a bit of a tap we can turn off and on again. So, you know, we might open the doors a little bit, but then slam them shut a little bit later on. If things go according to plan, or what seems to be the current plan, it sounds like we'll all be out and about again by summer, by late summer in particular. But then we'll have a kind of another second wave of this in September, October, which is when there's pressure on the NHS again. So, you know, could we expect a second wave of this? Just literally keep an eye on the news and try and understand it as best you can. Have I cheered everybody up there? What I'd say is keep an eye on the news. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, though, unless you go to our blog page, in which case you can read it. If it's fact, we'll tell it as fact. If it's opinion, we'll tell you it's opinion. Just go through that. There's something hitting there almost on a daily basis at the moment. I was going to do one on the CBILS loan later on today, but we know that's going to change anyway at the weekend, so I'm going to kind of delay that one. But have a look at that. So, you know, everything I've been through at the beginning of this webinar is on that one on the top left-hand side, that blog on the top left-hand side. There's a cash flow toolkit underneath that. Help yourself to anything in there. Have a read of anything that you want to do. Ask me any questions that you want to. I'm just dave@bluesky.co.uk. Please be patient waiting for an answer. There's a kind of a lot going on at the moment. And follow the government webpage as well. That seems to get updated every day. There's quite a lot in there now. It's pretty helpful, and you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth there, not from Martin Lewis and not from the Sun online. Are there any questions? You've been very, very, oh no, sorry. Yeah, you've been very, very quiet. Thanks very much, Amy. Thanks to yourself for attending. If you can give feedback to Jeff as to how useful or otherwise this has been, all honest and constructive feedback is welcome. And we'll see what we can do again over the next week or two. Okay, we'll call it a day there, everybody. Thanks very much.